All right, good to go whenever.
Sorry, I was reading through all these emails that I got. I can do fracture stuff again. Okay, I have to teach a bunch of nurses soon, so.
Cool. That'll be fun.
That'll be interesting. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Jackson Vane.
I'm Johnny Kolosinski. You might remember me from such podcasts as I'm Sorry, Mario, You're on a Princess Cruise Ship, a COVID-19 adventure.
Oh, come on. That's terrible.
This is Hi, Everybody, a Bad Medicine podcast. Every week we talk about what Hollywood gets right and wrong about medicine and how the body works. You can find this podcast online at Hi, Everybody MD on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you also HiEverybodyMD.com.
Or you can call us at our hotline at 530-DOCTORB. I guess the B this week stands for big glands.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think that would be the way to go. Because we're going to be talking about Brooklyn Nine-Nine, one of my favorite shows. And it's an episode called 9 Days. So it's season 3, episode 12, if you guys want to watch and follow along.
Yeah.
Can you just explain the premise?
The premise of the episode, directed by Max Winkler, written by Phil Augusta Jackson, is that because Captain Holt is on a little bit of a sour trip because his husband Kevin is away in Paris, Jake comes up with busy work to keep him social over the weekends and pulls out a cold case out of nowhere. First interview of that cold case, they both get the mumps and end up quarantined together.
So they follow, a potential witness to the gym, and I think they kind of mentioned in passing that mumps wasn't having an outbreak in the city, and they just saw people dressed up in like technically that's an N95 mask, and then
that's far better than N95.
In theory, yes, but like you shouldn't be using that anyways. It's hard to breathe. Like the N95 is good enough, which please don't buy them if you don't need them. Like the healthcare industry really needs them right now, and everyone's buying them all up, and it's really causing a lot of issues right now.
This has been your one moment of actual advice.
Yes, I mean we actually have to reuse our masks.
Icky
in the whole day. Because everyone's buying up all the masks that we need for doctors.
That defeats the purpose of having a mask.
Well,
a little bit.
It prevents germs from going into you. You're not blowing those germs out onto patients. So
yeah.
I mean, the only bad part about it is, when you talk, it gets really sweaty. You build up a lot of moisture in there, and that kind of causes a lot of issues. So the fact that we have to reuse masks now because there's been such hysteria about like COVID and all that stuff kind of sucks. But... So there was concerns about that. So they go to the doctor's office pretty quickly afterward. And it was Oscar from the office at the doctor's office. And they diagnosed him pretty much immediately with mumps.
Right. We don't know if that was the same day or not, but we think it was.
Yeah, it takes so the incubation time, do you have a guess?
I'm going to guess 7 to 14 days.
16 to 18 days.
I'm going to guess 16 to 18 days.
So it could be quite a while before it tests positive. And usually the way you test it, and they kind of alluded that they were drawing blood from them because they all had the bandage on their arm, but it's really from buccal swabs or your urine.
What is a buccal swab?
So buccal means cheek.
Okay.
So they take a Q-tip and they swab the cheeks.
Why does buccal mean cheek?
I don't know.
That's bizarre.
Buccal mucosa.
The B stands for buccal.
Yeah, so then you run it on like a PCR, which is like a pretty fast test where it stands for polymerase chain reaction, so it reads the DNA and kind of matches that DNA with the DNA of the virus that causes mumps, which in this case would be paramyxovirus. That's the most common organism that causes mumps.
So mumps can be caused. Is mumps the symptom as opposed to the virus?
So mumps in general refers to this collection of sicknesses or symptoms that go together. So
let's talk about the symptoms that Dr. Oscar from the office gave, and let me know what's accurate.
So he said over the next few hours.
Over the next several hours.
Which makes no sense already.
Okay.
I can't predict how quickly someone's going to get sick. But saying that they get fever, aching, fatigue, those are pretty vague symptoms that you would get from any kind of like viral syndrome, right? Like if you got a cold, you probably felt achy, you feel tired, you get a fever. Intense jaw pain, which makes sense because it does affect glands in that area. Your parotid gland sometimes is at that angle of your jaw.
Yeah.
Salivary glands that are near there too. You have submandibular, which is just under your jaw.
Okay.
Any of those being swollen means if you open your mouth, it's going to hurt.
Well, he specifically said intense jaw pain when you eat sour or eat tart food.
Okay. And that can happen because if it affects your salivary gland, right? If it has your salivary gland, if it's big and angry and it has to work, means it's going to hurt.
Okay.
And if you think about foods that you eat, what types of food tend to make you salivate the most?
That's going to be sour stuff.
Yeah. However, there are certain situations where if you have a blocked salivary duct, that's our treatment is we give you lots of sour candies.
What would block a salivary duct?
Stones.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes stones.
You can get spit stones the way you can get a kidney stone?
Yeah, or tonsil stones.
Oh, yeah, I know about that. I know about.
Any kind of collection of debris can potentially clog a pore or a duct.
Okay.
So if you can make it work more, you potentially can build up enough pressure that you salivate so much that it just busts through the obstruction, I guess.
Like the virus is trying to go through Mr. Burns' door of disease.
Correct. And they're all trying to go through, but they all stopped each other all at the same time so they can't bust through. Mm-hmm. Same thing. He describes a goiter-like swelling, which is not how I would describe mump swelling.
And why not?
So whenever you use the term goiter, that's specifically referring to the front of your neck, and more specifically, it's your thyroid. Mm-hmm. This has nothing to do with your thyroid. So, and they even showed it, like none of them had goiter-like swellings. It was all on the side of the neck. Even when Holt developed, Penelope and
Balthazar, his two goiters that he referred to as goiters anyway.
Yes, but they are his two mumps, which is probably a better way to describe it. They all were always on the side of his neck. And that's the big thing with mumps.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
So most people, they do develop them on both sides. 25% only get one side. So Jake was one of the quote-unquote lucky ones that it was only on one side. But it usually looks like you have a second jaw.
Okay, so how, before we get into the last symptom, which is the most fun, how accurate was the makeup?
It's pretty accurate. Like, as a guy who's seen mumps a few times now.
You've seen mumps recently.
Yeah, in the hospital.
Yeah.
It just looks like you swelled up on one side of your neck and you look really misfigured.
Yeah, it doesn't. You sometimes talk about like a football player or a fat guy that has no neck. It doesn't look like a fat guy with no neck. It does not
look like a fat guy with no neck or a fat guy with multiple necks. Actually, it's closer to a fat guy with multiple necks than not.
It looks like. I don't remember if we've talked about Dune on this podcast recently or on my Star Trek podcast most recently, but it looks like Baron Harkonnen from Dune, from the David Lynch Dune,
where he just is massively swollen.
Yeah,
I mean
because he looks gouty.
Yeah, and it almost looks like those old timey movies where they get their teeth pulled and they have to wear that thing around their head to kind of that's what it looks
with like the cold with the hot water bottle sitting on the top of their head.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a picture just so I can show Johnny what a mump actually looks like. And it actually looks like from the show where they just look.
They did a good job.
Yeah, they look real mumpy, and that was like the first thing I would describe. And it's funny that I was looking that up because one of the top hockey players in the world also came down with mumps. And this was during a season of hockey where I think 14 top players got infected with mumps and they couldn't put on their cups because of the last symptom,
which is intense testicular pain.
Yes. So you do get something called orchitis, which is just swelling of the testicles, and they get real swollen and real tender. So these players...
give me sports ball size.
It depends on the person.
Okay.
So even going twice as much of what you normally were at would cause significant pain. Even going half as big.
Going from a golf ball to a racket ball would be
enough to cause a lot of pain. Because any amount of shaking or moving or walking would cause significant tenderness.
I'm uncomfortable. I'm ending this episode now.
I mean, it's not fun. This is why you need to vaccinate, because otherwise you're going to end up with, big old balls.
Yeah.
If you get mumps, and that's like one of the...
And not like the fun AC/DC version.
No. How dare you? Terrible.
Great song.
Horrendous. And it takes a long time to heal too. Like viral orchitis will take up to like a week and a half to fully go away.
Well, they were quarantined, and they were quarantined for 9 days, which is close.
I'd say the weird thing about their quarantine is the minute their quarantine ended, all their symptoms resolved immediately.
Yeah.
Which is not how mumps resolves. Like, it takes time. Like, anything that takes that much time to swell up that quickly will take a longer time for the swelling to rest. Yeah.
So they would end their quarantine because you're no longer contagious. You're just going to go around with this with gigantic balls and painful face tumors.
The general rule of thumb is once you don't have a fever anymore, you're really not contagious anymore.
Okay.
With most illnesses, like that's why a lot of people can't go back to school or to work until they're fever free for 24 hours. The general school of thought is if you're fever free, or as long as you don't have a fever, you can't be contagious anymore.
Okay.
Not 100% true, obviously, with all of the news of other viruses in the news and whatnot, but most of the time that's what they kind of assume.
Would they have just been quarantined? Would this be something that they'd want actual observation of?
Technically, this is a public health emergency. Because mumps, anything that's vaccine preventable, when there's an outbreak of it, becomes a public health emergency.
Really?
Yeah. So if you have the mumps and I tested you positive for it, I have to call the health department.
Kind of like we heard recently in San Diego about measles. Mm-hmm. The measles outbreak is a public health emergency because of the fact that why the crap do you have measles? We have shots for this now.
Correct. Yeah. So now we have to track where it is, figure out who's been exposed. I mean, as an adult, you probably haven't had your MMR booster, right? Like,
probably not.
I mean, I have to as part of my job.
Because you hang out with
germy children with the potential for having measles.
Hang out with might not be the right term there.
Yes.
I apologize.
Surround myself with? No. Bad. Just exposed to? No.
No. Let's go with work with.
Yeah.
Work around.
I am around a lot of children at work.
Yeah.
And we definitely get exposed quite a bit to it. I want to touch on the cold medicine overdosing. Because, man, did they drink a lot of cold.
They were literally doing shots of cold medicine, which, I mean...
Balthazar is a thirsty bitch.
Balthazar is a thirsty bitch. But they were sipping that purple drink. They were all on the tussin.
I would assume it's either the tussin. I'm also assuming that it could have been something with acetaminophen in it. Mm-hmm. So if they were drinking a lot of that, their liver's done.
Yeah.
You also, if they had a lot of Benadryl in it too, which is like the big medicine that they have in there to help you sleep, hallucinations would be very...
We've talked about that quite a bit. That Benadryl hallucinations are a thing.
It's a huge thing, and that's when you get kids that overdose on it, or adults even. Mm-hmm. They come in hallucinating. They also come in really hot, so that's not helping their fever at all, right? They're really dry. Mm-hmm. They're blind sometimes. They just act crazy. So they were drinking so much cold medicine that I'm surprised none of them just passed out. I mean, they were trying to sleep and all that stuff, but they would have been real messed up.
Is touching not the goiter, is touching the mump as painful and...
It's going to be sore. It's going to be really, really sore. The other thing you might notice is if you touch it, it might be warm too. That kind of poke will hurt like hell. And think about like if you had lymph nodes and stuff like that when you get sick and you just kind of touch it, it's really tender. So imagine that on a grander scale. That would hurt
being half of your face.
Exactly. That would hurt a lot. A lot of the treatment is supportive care, so actually taking like ibuprofen or something like that would help a lot and maybe not make the mumps hurt so much. Mm-hmm. And it also would reduce the swelling a little bit, but you would look miserable.
Would taking cold medicine be the right choice for mumps?
Well, there's no cold,
right?
Okay,
that's
a lot of people kind of go, oh, I have a cough, so I'm going to take some Tylenol. That does absolutely nothing. In this situation, I mean, the symptoms from mumps is discomfort in the glands, a painful jaw, painful chewing, fever, headache, body aches, decreased eating, and then fatigue. So
none of that is Dayquil.
Correct. The only thing in Dayquil would be the ibuprofen or the Tylenol.
What about like a sinus med? You're not the swelling doesn't get to the point where it's giving you like a sinus headache?
Well, it's not involving your sinuses at all. So you have no congestion or runny nose, right? So if you have no congestion or runny nose, the likeliness of it involving your sinuses is pretty darn low. Okay. So that's why I think it would just really the biggest thing that would help would be like a warm compress or cold compress on your neck, and then ibuprofen and staying well hydrated.
And also not trying to solve mysteries.
Correct. Though it would keep your brain occupied enough so that you don't have to think about your mumpiness. And then, do you know why people really get vaccines for mumps? It's not just the mumpy feelings and stuff like that.
No, I don't.
So really, the biggest concerns with mumps, just like measles and rubella and rubeola, which is measles, is because you don't want to get deafness, which can actually be a secondary thing of the mumps, meningitis and encephalitis. So it actually can cause like neurologic issues and central nervous infections or central nervous system infections. So that's the reason why the vaccine is really important. Yes, it will prevent these minor,
this 2-week discomfort.
Correct, but it's really preventing you from dying.
Okay.
So that's like the bigger thing that it's trying to prevent.
So they would have probably not. They would have been at least checking in with their doctors every week or something like that.
Yeah, or when they start hallucinating or acting really weird or throwing up a lot, that's when you kind of worry about meningitis. I mean, the hallucinations with fever, that's pretty common. Like, some people say weird stuff when they have fevers or act really weird.
Case.
Yes, and then eventually with a K. That's normal in a fever situation. But if you start vomiting a bunch or become difficult to arouse, that's when it gets really worrisome and scary.
At one point in time, they wanted to leave in the most ineffective biohazard suits ever. They, I believe, Captain Holt had like galoshes and oven mitts.
Yep.
And like you said, the N95 or N99 masks.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know that's not going to be effective.
No.
But
I mean, to be honest, the best way to prevent infection is to wash your freaking hands and not touch stuff. And they're going to touch everything. And the fact that they have to put on their gloves and stuff like that, that's going to touch a lot of stuff too. So.
And they're still going to touch their faces with their oven mitts.
Correct. And the oven mitts aren't exactly like gloves or like latex or nitrile gloves where it doesn't have a bunch of pores in it.
Yeah, I mean, you can still sweat through the oven mitts.
Yeah, and the oven mitts will catch more stuff on it because there's more nooks and crannies and stuff like that. I'm trying to also think. Since this is winter time, can you guess what else would cause parotitis, which I've seen this year already?
The flu?
Yeah, just regular flu, which is more reasons why you need to get the flu shot so you don't get big old salivary glands and be miserable and can't eat sour candies or anything like that.
And then meningitis, and then...
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the flu causes pneumonia and all that stuff. It's still pretty darn deadly.
Yeah.
But that's not the hot
But it's less sexy.
It is not the hot, sexy disease.
Than COVID-19.
Yes, or mumps.
And like we already talked about their recovery a little bit. They would, kind of like when we were talking about comas last week, they wouldn't just be Tuesday I'm sick, Wednesday I'm 100% again.
So if you think about the whole disease course, so let's say once you start showing symptoms, which is usually with fever, the swelling of your face lasts for about 1 to 3 days. I think in the show it was like for 5 or 6 days or something like that. Fevers will last for 3 to 4 days, which is kind of standard. Like, I mean, that's what I tell every family, is that we really don't worry until the fever lasts more than 5 days in a row. Because most illnesses, by day 4, which is usually your worst day of sickness, you should start getting better by day 5 or so.
And something that I think you and I have talked about, but I don't know that we've talked about on the show, a fever to worry about is not, I'm at 99.6.
No. And honestly, I don't care about the number. Because the only time I've actually seen legitimate brain damage from a fever was from someone who was in a hot car that was not open. So it was like a baby that was left behind in a car, fully raised windows, and eventually that baby had like a temperature of 109. And that was the only time we actually saw something. Yeah. And that was not because of their own body. That was from external sources.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason why we saw like denaturing of proteins and all that. Like her muscles were breaking down. The brain, like the kid came in with seizures and all this other stuff, mainly because that kid was baked.
So even 103, 104 degree fever is bad.
Yeah,
in that it's a bad symptom.
It's a bad symptom, but you don't need to go to the ER for it. Your brain, the hypothalamus in your brain really controls fevers. So as long as you're a normal person with a functioning brain, your brain will keep you from hitting those levels of fever. Whereas the only patient I've ever seen that hit a 107, 108 without being sat in a car was a patient who was not vaccinated and ended up getting like encephalitis.
Mm-hmm. Which means that your brain's not functioning the way it should.
Correct. And that was the only time I've actually seen the temperature hit that high.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm sure we're going to get angry people. I don't know if anti-vaccine people listen to this podcast.
I somehow doubt it.
I somehow doubt it too, but if they are, this is why we do all this stuff. And I don't make money from Big Pharma. No, I don't make any money from Big Pharma. Let's be honest. But it's just a silly thing to think that. I'm busy enough as is as a doctor. This is what I tell families all the time that don't vaccinate, is that I'm really busy as a doctor. I don't need more business. Mm-hmm. My job is to keep you away from my emergency department as much as I can. So if I can do something to keep you from coming back, that's my whole job.
Yeah. You're like IT.
Yeah.
Your goal is not to be seen.
I tell them, you're nice people. I just hope I never see you in my hospital ever again. And that is the way I usually sell it. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, people are a little receptive to that because they realize, look, I'm not in it for the money. I have no benefit. But if they understand that doctors who actually do give vaccines don't make any money from giving the vaccine,
right,
they would understand that.
Yeah.
Like, it actually costs the office money to actually provide that service because storing the medications, making sure the lot number is correct, all that stuff actually costs more money than to actually give the medication. It's more public service than anything.
Yeah. Before I ask a couple important questions, anything else you want to add about plot points and what we saw?
I'm trying to think. Amy is real brave going in there and out of there. Like,
even with her
Yeah, I mean, it depends on when she got her booster and stuff like that. And does she know that it took? Sometimes those vaccines don't take. That's the reason why herd immunity is so important. I mean, I think the last time I got a booster for MMR was before fellowship. So that was like 6 years ago. So I'm probably overdue for it now. And it was crazy because when I actually got my titers to tell me what level of immunity I had to the most common types of illnesses, I was at 0 for everything.
Because it had been so long?
Yeah. And it wasn't even that long. And I was at 0 for everything. So I had to get re-inoculated or vaccinated just to get my immune system back to where it should be if I was going to be exposed to so many sick children all the time.
Yeah. So possibly going to check your titers again?
Yeah, eventually.
Someday.
Maybe.
All right. Well, with that, I've got an important question.
Yeah.
The human centipede bills itself as 100% medically accurate.
Okay.
If that's the case, how medically accurate is Brooklyn Nine-Nine Season 3, Episode 12, 9 Days?
Okay. So, it's okay. We can start with that it's more accurate than the human centipede. That's a given. In terms of how fast they show the positive tests, that's a little silly. Like you can't get sick from the mumps that quickly, but we don't know exactly how much time elapsed from when they spied on him at the gym to when they got diagnosed with it. And usually, I didn't talk about how it's transitioned, but usually it's through saliva or saliva droplets.
So when they talked about licking eyeballs, that would have been actually a great way to transmit it.
Yeah, so that actually would be a way to transmit it. I don't know how they got it that quickly, unless they went into the gym and touched everything. Or
they didn't actually get it from him.
Potentially, but then where did they get it from? That's a good...
Anywhere question. In Brooklyn.
I guess so, because there's an outbreak. Them describing it as a goiter, that's more like a technical description kind of thing more than anything.
Would a doctor sometimes use the wrong term because it's what people get?
I wouldn't call it goiter because that's such a...
Because it's specific?
It's very specific to be the front of the neck. Mm-hmm. And that's one of those loaded words that if you had a patient who looks up everything you tell them, they'll be like, oh, there's something wrong with my thyroid. Can I please get my thyroid checked?
That's a good point.
So I would try to avoid certain words like that. I would say your neck's gonna swell, and it's usually the side of your neck or your jaw is gonna swell, and it's involving these glands. And this is why I don't want you eating sour food right now because it's gonna hurt a lot. So that's a better way to describe it than just using goiter. I mean, goiter is easy for TV people to understand, but if you're the patient and you were told your goiter is going to swell, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go home, look up what goiter is, and then demand more tests.
And then be concerned about your thyroid.
Yeah, give me more trouble. Cold medicine overdose, that's pretty accurate, I would say. But really, it's just how long the sickness lasted for, which was kind of stretched out. And 9 days is such an arbitrary 9 days is such an arbitrary number to pick, I would say. Usually I would say you're quarantined until resolution of these symptoms, and at least a day after that.
Okay.
That would be an easier way to describe it. So percentage-wise, it's probably like 160, 180, I'd say.
Okay, that's better than Scrubs.
I mean, this was a pretty accurate portrayal of mumps. Like, it looked hilarious, but that's because that's how you look. Like, you look hideous. You look like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. The Disney version of it. He looked like he had mumps, too.
Yeah. I noticed that they did a really good job with Jake's eye makeup.
Oh, yeah, because they almost made it look like he was just sad. With
he had really sunken in eyes.
I think that just all adds up with the mumps. Like, everything's swollen. Nothing's draining from the top of your head down. Your lymphatic system's all blocked up. So that's why you look just sad in general. And mumps in general... Like,
plus your testicles hurt.
Yeah, you're going to not sleep super well.
That's a good reason to look sad.
Well, you can't lie down or sit comfortably without, at least knocking into one or two of them and then causing a lot of pain. But I don't think anyone's ever taken a picture with the mumps and looks like good.
There is no Instagram mumps.
No.
Models.
It's funny because if you look on Google and you Google mumps, you have all these people that are trying to look kind of nice with their mumps pictures. It's impossible.
I might be taking a moment now and Googling sexy mumps just to see what happens.
You're going to be sorely disappointed. It just looks horrible. Yeah, the first one is young pretty woman with blonde hair with mumps. And she looks terrible. It's just dumb stuff. Like, you cannot look good with mumps, period. So
noted.
Yeah. But yeah, that's like, it's pretty accurate though, I will say.
If they wanted to do this type of disease and have it be something that could be diagnosed better, or I'm sorry, not diagnosed better, diagnosed more quickly, is there another option that they could have done?
PCR is the fastest way to diagnose them.
Okay.
And that usually comes back within like an hour or two.
I was thinking more the 16 to 19 days of...
I mean, that's the incubation time. So, like, it depends from when you got it. So, it depends, really. Okay. And the thing is, what they could have played it off as is, there's an outbreak. They could have gotten it from before that.
Right.
And then now they have it.
I just had a thought. Why the heck were Jake and Captain Holt and the doctors together at the same time?
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I wouldn't want to be diagnosed with mumps with my boss.
With your boss there? Yeah. Even if you both have the same symptoms.
Yeah, I wouldn't want... It's a HIPAA violation, definitely. Yeah, that is an odd thing that I never noticed.
Yeah.
And why was Amy... Well, Amy being there with Jake would make sense, but Amy being there with Holt makes no sense.
Amy secretly has power of attorney over Holt. That's my headcanon right now.
It's also not secret that she has power of attorney over Jake.
Yeah.
It's just given by this point now.
Yeah. And probably a good call.
Yeah. For him, for sure.
Yeah.
With Mr. Mumpy, yeah.
All right. Anything else we want to add on 9 days? Other than, wash your hands, guys.
I was going to say, that's probably the biggest thing is just wash your hands. That's the best way to prevent any kind of illness. Also, don't buy all the toilet paper. That would be great, too.
Okay. If you are looking for toilet paper and can't find it at Costco, at least here in San Diego, Home Depot, great place to find it.
Yeah, but really, if you're stocking for the apocalypse, toilet paper is not the thing you need. Seriously. Or Purell, fine. I get that part. If you're like, if you
not a prepper podcast.
Yeah, but no, you don't need that much toilet paper. It's driving me nuts watching how much toilet paper is being bought by random people right now. You can't poop that much. No one poops that much, even if you have IBD. You can't poop that much. It takes a lot. So.
All right. Well, hopefully next week we'll be talking about how all of the craziness has ended and people are being normal again.
I can only hope.
But that's not likely. So next week we'll have another episode that is tangentially related to craziness.
Yes. Can't wait.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, folks, for listening. We'll be back next Tuesday with more Hi, Everybody, a Bad Medicine podcast.
Thank you. Cool. Oh, this one's good.